Welcome to the Backpage again. Obviously myself, Kwame, we've got Sammy, and we've got a special guest, a good, or not, I wouldn't say a good friend of mine, but someone that I know through a mutual friend. He is a Stoke City fan. He has worked with the likes of Eurosport, Sky Sports. He covers a lot of Women's Super League. He goes to a few of the Premier League games. He does broadcasting, etc., etc. Journalism as well, would you say? Or
yeah, definitely.
Well? Yeah. Please correct me if I'm wrong. His name is Tom Gayle. All right, so welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Welcome, Tom.
Thanks for having me, boys. Thanks for having me.
No. Thanks for coming on. So like obviously I know you told us, or you told me personally, that you was a Stoke fan. So if you just wanted to kind of like explain why Stoke? Is it because of the area you grew up in, or like what is it that?
Yeah, he's obviously far from glamorous, isn't he? No one calling me a glory hunter. I'm a Stoke fan. Stoke born and bred. If you don't know, I'm not sure saying it's Stoke and Port Vale where we are. Those are the sort of two choices. And my uncle on my mum's side was a massive Stoke fan. So not that he pressured me into it, but there was always that influence. And my best friend at primary school, that was the easy thing. It was like, all right, we're both Stoke fans, of what you are at like 5 or 6 or whatever, you're like, that's my team and stuff. Mm-hmm. But then obviously when we went to secondary school and a lot of people went their separate ways, I literally went to a school full of Vale fans. So I was literally like, I was like this only
one out.
And back in the day, this is where Vale always used to turn over Stoke. And obviously in recent years, we've hit the heights, Europa League, Premier League, but we seem to be heading back in one direction at the moment, unfortunately. But proud to say I am a Stoke City fan.
What was it in terms of you falling in love with football? Like, what was the first moment where you kind of fell in love with football for you personally?
I think, to be honest, it was just a cultural thing from day dot. To be honest with you, I vividly remember. I know it sounds bad. We'd go on the bins at school and like you'd find a bottle top or if you knew, basically if someone hadn't crushed up their bottle and the sort of air was still inside it on the yard, anything that you could kick, and we'd all sort of do that. So that's what I definitely remember was just searching around for anything, because obviously balls were at a premium, especially at our school sort of thing. You'd end up on the roof or go over the fence, and the teachers understand to be like, we're not paying every time you guys lose a ball and that. So it was literally, obviously, just kicking bottle tops around. I can remember you'd have your dinner and just race out to the yard and literally just play till you finished. Obviously, that then transpired into Sunday league, stuff like that, and that was pretty much hooked. To be honest with you, just loved kicking it about. I've never been any form of a technical player or anything like that. I just loved just running around and just exercise, and that was it, man.
Nah, fair play. Also I know that you kind of talked about, you said you had like a little transition where you realized that you was actually good at running. So if you wanted to kind of explain, I can see that you got kind of like a ballon behind you in terms of athletics.
Yeah. Well, that's so a sport, I've always done every single sport. I think similar to most boys, most UK boys, obviously the immediate transition's football. I always had a good engine. So, I always used to run a bit. And fair play to my dad, because we're all the same. We all want to be a pro, don't we? We want to get scouted and go and live the dream. I was so far off the radar, it was never going to happen. But my dad somehow winged me a trial at Crewe Alexander, which is a prestigious academy.
That's pretty
good.
But
obviously, I'm sure they took 5 seconds to realise this boy ain't this. And I think that was. I wouldn't say I was crushed by that, but it was a bit like, well, okay, so if football's not the one I can maybe see myself doing a career in, running, let's start, and I was getting more success in that, like representing the county, eventually, building up to a reasonable level. But I guess it was always a sort of shared, so I guess really the football as a player stopped, but I always was obsessed with the game and watching it, whereas my actual physical exploits were just always like endurance running. So 800, 1500 meters, cross country during the winter. And I did that till I wasn't any quicker, to be honest with you. So just pushed it all. Well, So me and Mo Farah are the same age group. So I
Right.
used to compete against him. This, massive caveat against him, not like alongside him, not a rival or anything. Anyone he was worried about. But though that's the sort of era I grew up in, was just just like I say, just running. Which I definitely do love my running. But I've always been a team sport man as well. That's always something you had it a bit with uni and stuff like that. But I definitely missed that whole element of football, basketball, whatever it was, doing it with other people, whereas running can get quite lonely at times, to be honest with
you. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And then, so you kind of made that transition from football to athletics. So then, I saw or I read that you said that you became a teacher, or you're a teacher. Is that something that you wanted to do? Is that something that you saw yourself doing, or you kind of fell into it?
No, well, my mum's a lifelong teacher. She taught her whole professional life, so from 21 till day she retired, which was probably late 50s. And she was always adamant. She was like, "No, you're not going to be a teacher." I did sports science at uni. I don't criticize that, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I was like, "Well, I enjoy sports, so I'll study more about sport." And then off the back of that, I just got a teaching assistant job, because again, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I've done a lot of coaching in sort of my late teens, early 20s, and so working with youngsters is always something I enjoyed. And then, long story short, I basically just ended up qualifying as a teacher. And I did a primary school, secondary school, like sixth form, so A level, BTEC, and also did higher education as well. So I had the whole spectrum of it.
Wow, that's crazy. So then after that, then you kind of like transitioned into, how did you get into media? Because it seems like it's been within such a short space of time. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So part of it was when I was doing my athletics and I got injured. I was a bit like, well, what am I going to do with all the spare time on my hands? So I used to see, a big fan of the Olympics. Every time the Olympics comes around, glued to the television as regards to all that. And I was like, well, that looks a great job. If I can't be there on the track as such, why can't I speak to the people or commentate on them? So that was initially. So I was dabbling quite a bit in athletics, just doing a bit of reporting, interviewing people afterwards. And then in 2012, obviously, the big year for the Olympics, that whole buzz. I was fortunate to get a 6-week placement in BBC local radio. Wow. And I was living in Leicester at the time. So did 6 weeks in the summer holidays. So obviously I was teaching. I got a few sly days off at the end of the year. So I was managed to get the full 6 weeks in. And I was just like, boy, this is it, man. Because it was, Leicester's a good area. That Leicester City Football Club, they have a good basketball team. They have loads of Olympians, and you were just going in every day, like speaking to these people, doing radio stuff for them, doing a bit of online writing. And that's when the seed was sown. I was like, with all due respect, I can always teach. I can always probably come back and teach. How about I give this a crack? So I was juggling lots of volunteer stuff for a couple of years. And then I got married, and then my wife was like, she's at Stoke born and bred as well. She's like, I want to move back home. So I was just like, right, this is my chance. Sort of handed in my notice at my job. It wasn't. I certainly didn't fall out of love with teaching, but there was a few things going on, like just admin, drama, politics. I was just like, yeah, exactly. And I was just like, right, okay, let's just go supply. They're always. We all know they're always going to need supply teachers. It's one of the hardest jobs going, but they'll always need supply teachers, get whatever. So I basically juggled that, and then anything else, like if it was volunteer work or ideally just stuff getting paid, where eventually I was able to get a job at the BBC after loads and loads of applications. It wasn't like first hit. It wasn't
overnight,
And then no, definitely. And then I guess that's it then. So once I got into the whole getting inside the door, getting into the BBC, and then things just taken off to the point where now for the past 18 months, I'm a freelancer. So as you mentioned, obviously I work for the BBC, but then I can now do various bits of broadcasting for other companies as well.
That's amazing. So what you're saying about, you're saying that you're a freelancer. Is it a thing where you have to go to these different companies? So like you have to go to Eurosport and say, hey, have you got any jobs for me? Or is it a thing where they actually approach you?
Yeah, well, no, so laughing. Sometimes I think I do speak to a lot of people, like, obviously, because, you know, I'm definitely, for one, I won't go as far to say pulling the ladder up and off you, but I'm always happy for people to say, how did you get to where you were, you know? And I'm more happy to give, hence why I'm speaking to you guys, you know, about how it's happened for me. But it's loads of trial and error. Like, sometimes you'll ping an email to someone and you catch them on the right day, and it's like, and things, I guess, on our meeting, or, you know, you show reel or something like that. And then others, you never hear back from them. Maybe you have to be a bit persistent. But I think, obviously, pre-COVID social distancing, I think the best way is just face-to-face. Like, I did a lot of, I wouldn't say pointless journeys, but, you know, regardless of where the people were in the country, just like, okay, can I come and grab a coffee with you? Or can I come and just tell you my story face-to-face as such? And I think people often appreciate that. Again, what you say in those meetings, I learned through trial and error that there's do's and don'ts sort of thing. But I guess that's the thing. It's just, I suppose I was very naive at the start. I didn't see any barriers. I was just like, Eurosport, you know, oh, that's great. Let's get in touch with them, or BBC, or, you know, Sky and stuff like that. And sometimes you have some really harsh reality checks along the way. But they say, you know, I'm not the first or the last to just say you just got to knock on them doors, really. But also back yourself. I think that's the thing, is that I'm not saying people ever do it half-heartedly, but if this is what you want to do, keep going at it. Do you know what I mean? You'll get loads of people who say no or don't reply and stuff like that. I think largely I was just like, I really want to do this, and I think that's part of how I'm able to, you know, be the relative success that I've had today.
Wow. No, it's really inspirational, like, to hear that. And I think it's important for people to know that it's not something that, whatever your dream or whatever your career pathway, it's not something that you'll just, you know, you can just ask one question to someone and you'll just get immediately let in. It's a thing where you have to, like you said, you have to be persistent. You have to keep on trying, and just kind of like not to let the obstacles, you know, beat you, or, you know, just overrun you. So it's good to hear stories like that, definitely.
Well, I definitely, from my sport, sorry, just on last point, on my sport, like running, you have to run so many miles and so many hours of training. And that's what I've always been like. I definitely think professionally, if it was teaching or now it's broadcasting, I'm just like, you just got to learn and just keep practicing, keep training, and just keep, you know, if people say you're not good at this, start working and getting better at that sort of thing, rather than just be, oh, that's not for me, or I don't fit. I've always been quite brutal. And if you tell me what I'm bad at, or, you know, I need to improve on, I'll go away and work on that. I don't necessarily know if I'll be amazing at it, but at least I'm like, well, that's good, because I know what you're saying I need to be better at if I want to do this job, sort of thing. And then like I say, once you've got a relative bit of success, you get a platform, you have a bit more exposure, but then equally so, you're then looking for new challenges and new people to impress, I guess, basically.
Is there any people that you look up to within your, you know, within your sector, within like reporting or broadcasters? Is there any like top guys that you look to or that you learn from, or like how do you improve as a reporter, would you say?
I think there's definitely, I think we've all probably got our preferences, like you say, I like listening to them, or I love what they do. But honestly, I think specifically with broadcasting, my always thing is just listen to as many people as you can, because we all do it our own way. And that's one of the key things I found, that there's no point. You might, I'm trying to think. So Martin Tyler, you know, obviously,
he's like
arguably the best football, the best football commentator in the country. There's definitely things you can learn from Martin Tyler, but you can't be Martin Tyler, because that's Martin Tyler. But if you listen, you know, if it's commentary, if commentary is what you have to, just literally just listening to him commentate, you know, and just thinking of how he describes things, you know, his use of words, his pace, his volume, how he sort of builds tension and stuff like that. Like, obviously this is specifically radio. I'm a big radio fan. And if you listen to the Talk Sport, Five Live, there's a reason why these guys, and we have to accept it as largely a male dominated thing. There's a reason why they're in these jobs, because they're so good at using the voice and setting a scene. Because I grew back on the day of, not there was no football on telly, but the whole 3 p.m. at the weekend, it was literally crack the radio on and listen to it and let someone else paint that picture for you, sort of thing. So you definitely get to appreciate how good a skill. And that's the thing. I think if we're definitely saying commentating, it isn't an overnight thing. It's all about like the classic 10,000 hours. You've never seen every single goal. You've never seen every save. The more you're there watching football and talking about it and commentating on it, the better you get. Literally, regardless of what your ceiling is, you can't tell me that if you commentated every day for a year, you wouldn't be 365 times better than when you started. It is literally a case of just got to keep doing it, and I guess getting that feedback to say, because I guess to caveat that it's all right doing it, but if you're doing it wrong, that's what. But if people are listening to it and saying, do this better, or that was good, you need to work on this, it is there's definitely a training element to it all.
What have you done commentary before?
Yeah. So I suppose broadcast. So I commentate, I present, I report, and there's all different skills to them all. And it definitely, I just love talking about football. To be honest with you, that's quite.
What's the best like match you've commentated on?
I think one of the one that I got the real buzz from, I mentioned I did a lot of women's football commentary. So obviously West Ham last year, that was their first year as a professional women's team. They got to the FA Cup semi-final, and it was a great game. It finished 1-1 in normal time. It went to extra time, but then West Ham went on penalties. And I just remember, like, it was Choi, who's their South Korean midfielder. She took the last one, and it was you sort of sometimes have got a good idea what you're going to say when it happens, but it was like, I remember just delivering that line of Choi to make history for West Ham, and she drilled it, and I was just like, and that's when you're in the moment, just like thinking, I'm saying something big here. West Ham women who weren't even a thing, 12 months ago, and then their first season, they're now going to Wembley to play Man City, and that's definitely the one that sticks out for me, because I suppose I'm still in relative infancy. Not to say that that's a bad example, but I've still, I've only been doing this for a couple of years, sort of thing. So hopefully there's going to be many more moments, but definitely that's a massive one that sticks out to me.
Yeah, talking on women's football, obviously, like, you're commentating, and so you go to games and stuff like that. How big is women's football, and where's the ceiling for it? Like, how big can it go?
There's no ceiling. I think the key to it is money and investment, isn't it? That's that's the big thing that everyone's been talking about. Obviously, post-COVID, when everything's coming back, it's all right. The government saying the rugby league, they gave them a massive bailout, didn't they, or 30-odd million. Mm-hmm. Like, the only chat I've heard about the women's game is £1 million, which is obviously £1 million can go a long way. Yeah. But if you're thinking WSL, 12 teams, want to be professional, to be a WSL 1 team, you need to be seen as a professional organisation. £1 million is not going to go very far off that, but the profile's going, wasn't it? The success of the Lionesses, a lot of the best players in the world want to come and play in England. So, but obviously the fact that the natural fan base doesn't gravitate towards women's football, with all due respect, isn't it? So they've got to grow that commercial aspect of it. So I'm no marketing genius, but I know there's a lot of thoughts about the reason why it's on a Sunday and at that sort of time is to try and get, the Saturday afternoon audience to go to the women's football and stuff like that. It's obviously been streamed very well when it was happening, to make it more accessible. So as long as people continue to back it and the national team does well, Phil Neville, despite people's criticisms of it, he brought a huge spotlight to the women's game of this, one of the, what do they call them? The golden generation from Man United, him, that spotlight and attention he brought to it. So I definitely, so it's just answer that. I think he's definitely got no ceiling, but it needs money. It needs people to continue. Because, like, Liverpool, I'll be honest with you, it's a bit of a disgrace that their men's team and the whole setup is incredible. You imagine how much money goes into that club. They built this new training base, and they've not incorporated the women into that. So the women are still going to have to go and train and exist outside of that Liverpool bubble, where Man City, the perfect example, that whole Etihad campus. It's like, we're as one, men, women, academy, we're Man City, we're all together. And the men get far more greater funding, but they are seen as that one thing. There's still a lot of teams that still see the women's team as maybe something politically correct we need to have, but we don't really back them or support them. The more Man Cities are out there, and even Man United, to the same degree, that they're now obviously getting well and truly behind. Arsenal have been doing it for years, just really supporting and backing women's football.
That's very, very interesting. It's a good insight as well, because it's like you said, it's still emerging, like the whole, you know, WSL, like the whole league, and it's still got a long way to go. But yeah, definitely it's a thing where you need those big clubs to set an example. And, you know, if we do get more clubs like Man City or following Man City, what they're doing in terms of supporting the women's game, then you could definitely see a big improvement. I can see a lot of potential in it, to be honest. But
it's all role models, isn't it?
Yeah,
Also role models, just like the more, again, women's football had no profile with me growing up. Obviously, I'm not a woman, so, you know, I'm not looking for it. But now, if you've got a young, you know, picture the scene of me chatting about kicking my bottle top around the yard. How many girls are now looking at Steph Houghton, Nikita Paris, Jill Scott, you know, people like that, and saying, I want to be the net. They've always been there in athletics, you know, and those Olympic sports. We've always had these really, you know, high profile female role models. Women's football has been going around for a while, but we've just never seen them, have we? Now they're on, you know, broadcast television, they're all over social media. And yeah, hopefully more and more girls will just be like, yeah, I want a bit of that, and continue to bring the talent through.
Okay. I wanted to kind of just, you kind of touched on it in terms of COVID-19, the pandemic. Obviously, it was an unfortunate event, and, you know, there's still the after effects of it now. How did it affect you in terms of your job? Did it affect you a lot, or was it a thing where you kind of had to make a big adjustment?
So he just cut out like this. That was you asking about how COVID has sort of impacted. Or
no, for you, how has it impacted you in terms of your job, in terms of your line of work?
Yeah, well, like I said, for, you know, up until what was it, March? I think I remember I was due to go to Aston Villa Chelsea the next day, and that was when the Premier League had announced that everything was suspended. And as you know, I was going to like two or three football games a week. So immediately, you know, all that, the classic case of the diary was full of these dates. They were all gone, to be honest with you. So, and it was a mixture, because I do a bit for varying employers. Like some people would honour stuff that was booked in. Other people were like, you know, sorry, we're getting rid of our own staff. We can't really pay you for something that hasn't happened yet. So you know, I'll be honest with you, it got a bit dark sort of March, April time, but I've always been quite resourceful, because even, you know, I talked about being a teacher and stuff like that. Even then, I was getting back in touch, to people do you need any marking or stuff like that? So I've just always just been able to just hustle, I guess, a bit. And that's eventually but also stuff like this, Zoom. So I've been doing a lot of interviews with people for, you know, getting in touch, as you mentioned, those contacts. People have... so that was another good thing of literally, you know, the whole classic of who's in your contact book. I went through my phone and all my emails. I was just like, right, who do I know, or who have I previously worked with who might be in a position to offer me something now? And just went through loads of people. And fortunately, I still managed to do a bit with the BBC. They sort of maintained a level of involvement, but I guess like loads of people just adapted to the whole working from home, doing a bit of voiceover stuff, you know, commentary voiceover for programs and things like that. So just setting up from home really, and opened your eyes as what's possible from not even leaving these four walls, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Has this encouraged you to kind of like possibly maybe like do your own podcast or do your own kind of show from home?
I think I'm fortunate I'm not saying I'm past that, but I did a lot of the whole self-setup startup, you know, a lot of YouTube, a lot of my own stuff initially. And that's, again, like obviously similar to yourselves, that's how you sort of get people noticing you, you know, not waiting for people to give you a job.
Yeah.
You know, do it. And I think at the moment I'm quite fortunate, like I say, that I've maintained things that I have work at the moment. There's definitely things I want to do myself, but as a father of two and a husband, and I'm working 2 days most weekends now. It's all about a bit of life balance, to be honest with you. So I'm definitely keen on stuff, but I've always weighing it up to what's the commitment to, you know, or what am I having to give up or sacrifice? And sometimes I've had to just say, I'd really want to do that, but I haven't seen the missus. I've been out all weekend and I can't do that. Or, you know, obviously my kids and stuff like that. So the whole podcast thing is massively boom. I guess the difficulty is standing out, isn't it? I think that's the thing. That there's so many examples and so many different things, but we're perhaps arguably, especially if we're talking about men's football, we're clutching at the same audience to some degree, aren't we? So it's how do you creatively do something different to make people at the best sacrifice what they were listening to and come to you, or also just add you to their listenership? Because that's another thing I do. Obviously, this is how I came across you guys. I just try and consume as much, as content from here, there, and everywhere as possible. Because there's always someone who will offer you something that you didn't think about, or they know a little bit more on it and stuff like that. So the whole sort of sponge thing, isn't it? And there's definitely a scope for having too much information, when you sort of get to filter out. But you'd be surprised how sometimes I'll be at games just reporting. I'll just think, well, I remember hearing that. And then you look at the stats and it's like, right. And then it just helps you being better at your job. So I'm massively invested in just checking out what else is out there, to be honest with
you. Yeah, no, I've got a lot of respect for that. So you say that you was at, what was the last game that you was at? Because I think I spoke to you the other day and you said you went to Villa. Is it the Villa game?
Yes. I was at Villa Palace on Sunday, which was a Villa. I'm the Villa home reporter, so I've covered all of Villa's home games for Sky Radio IRN. It's called, the company.
Wow!
I've seen them all season, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster. But like a week ago, I wrote them off.
Like everyone.
I'm trying to think. It's a bit embarrassing. Chelsea, the Chelsea game where they went in front. It was a ricochet defender goal, and I was just like, they're lucky. And then Chelsea just tore them apart in the second half, and it was you just got the sense it wasn't going to happen. But then, likewise, Bournemouth, they're just both showing that there's still a bit of life in the dog left, isn't there? So,
boy, speaking of this interesting weekend, how the interesting weekend where a lot of teams got, it was a lot of upset this weekend. North London derby. Let's start there. Kwame, let's start there, mate.
You just have to bring that up. Yeah, no, obviously it wasn't the best of games, but it's kind of what I wanted to get.
I didn't watch it live. I was listening to the radio on the back. It was TalkSport, so they were doing updates. Yeah. And they gave me the impression it was like the greatest game ever, sort of thing. And I did watch Match of the Day, and you can't take anything. But I'm a bit surprised that you said it wasn't the best game.
No, I'm talking as an Arsenal fan. It wasn't the best game.
Oh, just from the result. So the result was just drilling down to the result. Forget what happened. It's just literally we lost. Who cares if it was any good?
No, I care, but I think just for me personally as an Arsenal fan, it's always the same thing, and it's been going on for years in terms of if only we made a few more investments at the back and we bought better quality players, and it's just the frustration of. We've been doing so well in the last couple of games. We managed to gain some momentum, and then that penultimate game yesterday, you expected us to put on a fight because it is the derby. That's the biggest game of the season for us. But we just let ourselves down. We practically gifted them the game. That's the thing that's frustrating. Yeah. If they outplayed us, then I would have been like, all right, cool, that's fine. You take it. The fact that I had to watch Kolasinac make silly mistakes, and his pass back, not even getting a 10-yard pass. Right, and David Luiz not being on his toes, Mustafi as well, of all people, like some of the mistakes he was making. I literally feel I could be on the pitch, I could play better. I really believe I could play better. So that's the thing that's so annoying as an Arsenal fan. But yeah, we lost 2-1.
So, because Tom, can I ask you a question? Because that I've been hearing people have been saying that Lacazette. I don't know what one of your fans, Kwame, told me that Lacazette is a big game player. Do you think this is true, Tom?
I think Lacazette, if I'm being fair to the brother, he flatters to deceive. I think he's a proper highlights. That goal yesterday is a prime example. We all know he's got that in his locker, and the thing I'd probably want from Lacazette, if I'm not trying to say he's the same as Harry Kane, but Harry Kane, it'll go in off his shoulder, it'll go in off his shin for as many as his top corners from his brilliant headers and stuff like that. Lacazette's just not. He's not a goal scorer, is he? He can score goals, but he's not that man that you say 20. We're getting 20 from you here, Lacazette, every season. He's not at that level, is he? Sort of thing. And that's that Aubameyang. But to be fair, Aubameyang's that man, isn't he? That's what Arsenal say. Well, you know, and we want him support. But I don't know what his goal record is, but I doubt he's got more than 10, has he, in each season in terms
I tell you that it's not on par with Aubameyang. I tell you that.
Yeah, that's the thing. So.
Cheers, Sammy. Thank you.
No, but you know what it is? I think it's time for Lacazette to go. I think his time's up. Like, his time is up. I think it's time for him to go. Maybe he needs to go to the Spanish league or somewhere to maybe like have a new fresh of life and enjoy football. I don't think he's enjoying football, honestly.
It's going to be fascinating. There's loads of teams people who are unhappy maybe with certain players, or certain players think that the time's come. But who's going to pay proper money for? I know we've seen Sane, haven't we, and Timo Werner. You know, I think they're the exceptions, sort of thing. A lot of, you know, I think rightfully so. Maybe Arsenal would have been looking at quite a considerable offload at the moment. But if you're looking at your defence, you know, Mustafi, probably January, people would pay 15, 20 mil for him. Not in COVID, sort of, you know, combined wages and stuff like that. So I think I definitely got a respect for Arteta that he's clearly said, arguably, I'm going to have a lot of these guys for a lot longer than I thought. And he's gone down the coaching route of, I'll make you better player. You know, you're not, you know, the top dollar, but I'll make you better players. I'll make us a better team. And I think, obviously, the benefit of Arsenal, again, is that the youth, you know, when you combine that with Nelson, Saka coming through, and Arteta does see that perfect man. But we as all football fans, we're not patient, are we? You know, Arsenal fans want to be challenging for Champions League next season, don't they? You know, and that's, it takes like that result now to forget everything of the consistency you'd built up in the previous one, wasn't it? It's that reality check of, we thought we were here, the biggest game, arguably, of the season, North London derby, and we're falling short. I can see how frustrating it is. So, but they're not going to be alone. Like, this is the thing. There's so many teams that would have banked on freshening squads up and bringing people in. It's not going to happen now. I think it's good for youth. There's going to be a lot more youth who are going to get a chance, and Arsenal clearly showing that pathway, aren't they? And there's definitely something in teams who struggle for a while. How did Marcus Rashford come about? Is because Louis van Gaal was like, Rooney's past it. You know, I've got who else have we got? And I'm not saying that all teams are at that, but there's definitely youth who are going to be now, well, such and such is staying here, or I'm going to get my chance now, because they're not going to be bringing in 40, 50 million people from elsewhere, because, like I say, everyone's going to be tightening the belt. So,
no, definitely, you're all right. You know, and there's talking about, you know, the special one. It seems like he knows how to win, and everyone always says, he's past it, he's this, he's that. Do you think his time's up? Do you see Mourinho maybe winning some trophies at Tottenham, or is his time absolutely done and dusted?
His time's definitely not done and dusted. There will be always someone else who wants. He's just, like, speaking from a media perspective, he's just absolute gold, isn't he? You know, we wait to hear his interviews, pre-match, post-match. But obviously, for a long time, he backed that up on the pitch, didn't he? You know, with Chelsea, with Madrid, with Inter, and stuff like that. United, again, I know he talks about that was his greatest achievement, wasn't it? Them finishing second with what he saw as a very under par side. So. Yeah. Why did Levy bring him in? Because he wanted to win stuff. And I think we've all seen in the space of less than a season that that's not going to be an overnight thing. So I think people see I wouldn't say he's past it, but he's not your Pep. He's not your Klopp, is he? The people we compare him in terms of progressive and pressing game and developing youngsters and attacking flair. That's not in Jose's remit. So I think definitely you can see how international football would arguably suit him a bit more. You know, we talked about yesterday, big game mentality, bringing players together for those one-off standout. Okay, you know, what is it? I know the Euros is going to be massively bigger, but arguably you've got to win 8 games, haven't you, or something, to win the Euros. You can see Portugal probably saying, yeah, that's the guy. But week in, week out, certainly in the Premier League, he's showing that he's falling behind. Okay,
so you think that Jose Mourinho should move more into now international football, where he can just maybe space out his time in coaching?
I wouldn't say now, but I definitely see that in the next 5 years in making that transition. Because let's be honest, the PSG job is going to come up again in the next couple of years, isn't it? There'll be arguably, jobs in Spain or even, Italy. You could see him going back to Inter. But I think, as that poster boy of, we want to be success, we want to win the league and be competitive in the Champions League. I think Jose's not in that top 5 or even top 10 of manager. If you're saying in the next, we're here now, in 2 years we want to be there, as in league winners. I don't think Jose's that man anymore, unfortunately.
So where you ranking Jose Mourinho in the manager system right now?
So what are we saying in the world or in the Premier League? World's are probably a bit harsh. I don't know if I can cover everywhere. I think it was
through the Premier League.
I'll maybe go a bit wide.
The reason why I say, if we're looking at the 4 respective leagues that everyone classes as their main leagues, where are you ranking Jose Mourinho?
I think it's not necessarily more where you're ranking Jose Mourinho. It's more, not answer the question, but who are those big clubs? Who are those big clubs would want Jose Mourinho? If Jurgen Klopp walked out tomorrow, Liverpool aren't getting Jose Mourinho. We know United, he's not going there. Arsenal, you can see sort of thing, but if I'm thinking Chelsea, he can't go back there for a 3rd time, can he? If we're looking, I don't think Real Madrid would want Jose at the moment. I don't think Barca would want him. Bayern, I could see it, but I think they'd probably want to explore. That's the thing, for even when it all went wrong at Chelsea, didn't it? That season, the Snakes and Costa and Cesc and all that sort of thing. When he came back, then I think people were always like, Jose's still got something to offer, hasn't he? So that's hence why he got the United job, and people were like, Jose's back, and he had that successful season. But then he quickly unravelled, didn't it, sort of thing. So I think a lot of people will be like,
so then, do you think that? Sorry to cut you quickly. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because really, because Jose's gone from Chelsea to United to Tottenham. Surely this must be like his last kind of like big time job.
What's a big job? I think it's as in the European Giants job. I'd say definitely. Well, are we saying PSG a European giant?
To be honest, nah. But I don't really see Jose Mourinho going to a team like PSG.
You don't think?
Nah. I don't know why. I just don't know. I just don't see him going to PSG,
He's a winner, isn't he? And he's going to win the league with PSG. If you think of rebranding and stuff. I think the Spurs thing was interesting because I think obviously there was a lot of stuff that went on with Pochettino that, that probably isn't out there sort of thing. I listened to Kieran Trippier, and he did a good interview the other day. He was alluding to, on the surface, Pochettino's this. He wasn't being critical of Poch, but he was like, it wasn't all the fairy tale that it made out. And I think Jose largely thought, I'm speaking for Jose Mourinho, of course, he thought he could come in off the back of that and be like, right, Poch has done this great job. Let's take it to another level. But, the similar things we talked about maybe with Arsenal, aging defence, ability to freshen up. It obviously wasn't the meal ticket maybe that he thought it was, and there's work to do. Whereas if he's walking in at a PSG or a Bayern, at a given, he's going to win the league, isn't he? And we don't know what that does for your mentality, knowing that is Jose a different man, knowing he is the best in that league. And as we talked about, maybe on those not one-off, because Champions League is obviously a whole campaign, but if he's resting players and getting through the league, managing it by and by, maybe he's still got something to offer. So if you ask me, money where my mouth is, I don't think it's his last job. I think there's enough money in football that someone's definitely going to be like, we want a Hollywood appointment. Let's get Jose in. He can do it. But it's more interesting is how long is he going to last at Spurs? What do you guys? I don't know. He's definitely going to make this season. Is he going to be so the end of next season, is Jose still going to be?
Yeah, I think, like you said about us being impatient fans, I think we just want everything. We want a quick fix. We want that whole how Conte was for Chelsea. He came in, they won the Prem, the same season, etc. But it's like some certain projects you have to give the managers time, and like for us as Arsenal, I know that Arteta seems like he's the right man for the job, but it's going to take a number of seasons for us to get to that level, your Man City or Liverpool levels. And I think it's the same for Spurs. And like you said, I think he's come into the club and he's had a look at it. Obviously, they've got all the right things, you know, new stadium, new training ground, etc., etc. But they have to start winning trophies, and he has to build a title-winning team, and that's going to take at least 3, I believe, in my opinion, about 3 seasons. So you have to give him time. That's what I think.
Either way, I can't wait to watch the Amazon documentary. Yeah. It's going to be like
that'll be a good one.
It's Poch going into it. It's obviously coronavirus. It's Son going off to do military service. Dyer going into the stands to fend off people. It's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, personally, I didn't even want Jose Mourinho to leave United personally. Like, because if we look at it, the things that Jose Mourinho was asking for and the players that he was asking for, they gave the players to Solskjaer. That's who they've given it to. They've given the £80 million defender to Solskjaer. Yeah. They've gone to go and get Bruno. Yeah. They've gone to get Bruno. They've gone to get Wan-Bissaka. And now look, that was what Jose Mourinho was asking for, and he didn't want to give it to him. So now the narrative of Jose Mourinho looking like the bad guy at United doesn't look so bad now, because the players that are there were the players that he was asking for.
Well, I don't know.
Pardon?
I don't know, like, just sorry to cut you, Tom, before you go, but with Mourinho, he's a lot more stubborn. He's a lot more stuck in his ways. Whereas I feel like with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it's a lot more. He's like the yes man. He's United's yes man. So
But that's not the point though, because I think that if you had given him the players that he was asking for, remember he wanted Harry Maguire, he wanted Bruno Fernandes. I think he even wanted Aaron Wan-Bissaka. He got Aaron Wan-Bissaka. No, it's the truth though. These are stone cold facts.
I don't know. I think it's down to also
these are stone cold facts. It's true, but at the end of the day, I think that if you're looking at someone like Mourinho, who you've asked him, okay, Mourinho, we want you to come and do this type of job because we believe that you are a winner, but then you have to give him the tools to try and win something. Correct? They didn't give him the correct tools to win, to try and even compete for the league. They've said, okay, go and have Fred for 50 million. That Fred wasn't even doing anything in the first place. But then you're still asking him to compete with Liverpool and Man City with the dead midfield and the strikers that are only just now banging for their first season 15 plus goals.
Yeah, true.
I think I think it is the days of Jose, or has Jose ever been a project manager? I think that's the thing. I don't think anyone's ever arguably appointed Jose and thought, in 5 years' time, he is like that instant thing, and he's just so, he's not on brand, is he, Jose? He's a legend because he's his own man, isn't he? And politics is everything in all walks of life, but you're not supposed to say anything about the organisation, or you're supposed to like toe the party line. And he was all for calling out Woodward, wasn't he, and just saying, I sent him this list, I had this on it, and. I think when you're doing well, if he's in his pomp at Chelsea and Real, he's got it to back it up, hasn't he? To say, well, look at that trophy cabinet. I've brought you all of this. This is why I'm asking for Ozil or wherever it, whoever it was, Cristiano or whatever. I think that's arguably been his bit of his kryptonite sort of thing, isn't he? That he's not now looking back at his trophy cabinet because it's been so long since he's had that degree of sort of success. The whole the special one.
Do you know what's so funny, Tom? I would have thought that United would have given him the tools that he was asking for simply because he got them into Champions League by winning Europa and by winning a Carling Cup, even though it was just Carling Cup. But he's basically come in as a manager in his first season and won something that all the other managers that they've appointed couldn't do. So clearly, he's showing you, well, if you give me the tools, like you gave me the tools the first season, I can win you something. If you give me more money to build more, we can now do more things. But again, it's that narrative of Jose Mourinho's calling out this and calling out that. And personally, that's not really necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you have to call out, your organisation so you can get the players that that you want, and to try and compete with the likes of the Liverpools and the Man Cities, you know.
Yeah, no, true. I think, I think it's Mourinho's always been that kind of, you either love him or you don't, and I think it's also, for me personally, I think that it's a thing where United, maybe the board, they just didn't like him as a person, as an individual. They didn't like the way how he was so outspoken. And with, like I was saying, with Ollie's just more, he's a more likable character. He's more of a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a difficult one. But to move on with that as well, talking about managers, just quickly, Tom, I actually did want to get your ratings in terms of in the Premier League, because I heard on TalkSport this morning, and they were talking about Chris Wilder and saying that he should be the manager of the month. What do you believe? Do you believe it should be him, or do you think it should be Klopp with Liverpool?
I think, given what Liverpool have done, I think if we're saying, if we're judging it on who's been the best manager, Liverpool's record and just blitz, whatever it is, it's Premier League champions, world champions, they're still reigning Champions League champions, aren't they, for another month or so, like that. I think by far, the history of 30 years. But if we are judging it on resources and eventual, I think like Chris Wilder by far, because Liverpool, it's largely a settled squad, isn't it, sort of thing. But they still, it's less than 18 months ago they went and paid £90 million for a defender. When is Sheffield United ever going to pay 90 million for anyone, sort of thing, isn't it? And this is, it's hard not to say something different, but the whole League One players who are now balling on the highest stage, this overlapping centre back sort of thing. That McGoldrick at the weekend, he just epitomises Sheffield United, isn't he? Just proper grafter, does anything for his manager, knows his manager backs him to the hilt. They're all fit as anything, and they've just not shown anyone any respect, have they? They've not, like, there's been many. Look at Norwich, for all the chat about, they play great football. Literally, they've just laid down and died, haven't they, in the past couple of, since restart and even before that. Where Sheffield United, they were just, I was at one of the early season, you won't like this, Kwame, I was at Bramall Lane for Sheffield United Arsenal, and that, I think it was a Monday night. I think it was October, sort of, for Sheffield United, this was,
it was like playing against your team, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Arsenal, the mighty Arsenal are coming to our house. Bramall Lane was like packed out, sort of thing, and they bullied Arsenal. We can see it now, can't we, when we've seen how they've evolved as a team? But that was one of the first signifiers of, they were just like, many teams like, we'll get a draw against Arsenal, or a draw, if we escape a draw at home. Whereas Wilder was just like, no, this is home, don't care who it is. We're gonna try and win this game, sort of thing, and they just continue with that. And definitely how they've rebounded as well, because restart, they drew with Aston Villa, didn't they? They got hammered by somewhere, and everyone was like, the bubbles burst. And then they went and did Spurs, didn't they? And they're just back on the groove again. Yeah. So strictly on greatest manager this season, Klopp. But if we're judging it on what's your tools, who's got the most out of their players, undoubtedly Chris Wilder.
So wait, was this for the month or the season?
This is for the season.
For the season, yeah.
For the season.
You have to give it to Klopp, really, don't you? You have to. You have to.
Yeah,
I hear like the Sheffield United manager has done an amazing job, but I mean, Klopp, last season he was almost flawless. Last season, this season again, it's the same thing. Even though, I'm sure that people would have loved to see Liverpool play better football, but they done what they had to do, which is win the Premier League. So it has to go to Klopp. It has to.
And they could beat Man City's points record as well. They're still in a chance.
Yeah, still.
Look at that. So it has to.
I'm sure. Have you guys seen The Last Dance? You watched The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan,
yes.
And I think Klopp is the epitome of, like, people like Jordan and stuff, who just have these standards and just like, you can't take for granted how difficult it is to be such perfectionists all year round, sort of thing. And like, obviously that's what Jordan displayed so greatly in that. And even Klopp now, the they drew at Burnley, and he was spewing. He's just like, we want to win every, we literally want to win every game, sort of thing. And that there's question marks, isn't there, how long players can do that for, and even managers. You imagine just going into work every day and just being like, the very best is what's acceptable. Anything below is, imagine the stress and sort of anxiety of that. But like you say, he's just demonstrated that they're just relentless. And, he's bringing through youngsters. What was his line the other day? I want a team full of Scousers, isn't it? Sort of thing. He's there for the long haul.
I think, to be honest, I think he's just trying to bring lip service to the fans.
It's a good one. It's not being funny. One. If my manager said I want a team full of Stokies, I'll be like, yeah, but we all know it ain't going to happen. We all know it ain't going to
Because
but that's what
he has to add to his team this season. If he doesn't, I don't see Liverpool winning the league next season.
But the great thing with them is the whole Timo Werner. Why did he go to Chelsea? Is because Klopp couldn't tell him that he was going to be playing week in, week out, isn't it? So that's, Shaqiri's a good example. If we're using the Stoke connection of, it was a massive move for him, but he knew he was going there and he wasn't going to be playing all the time, isn't it? And how can you keep? And Shaqiri's still a good player. He's not world class, but it's getting people who arguably know they should be starting week in, week out in the Premier League, but saying, can you come and fit in to this masterpiece that I already have? And aside from youngsters, you're going to, they say about Koulibaly, don't they, and stuff like that. I don't think he's on Liverpool's age profile, is he? But are they going to say to Gomez, to Matty, you guys are now going to sit out the rest of this? Klopp doesn't strike me as that sort of. He seems very loyal, doesn't he, to those who've been on this journey with him. He's only going to bring in the final pieces of the jigsaw, you sort of Van Dijks, isn't he, sort of thing, to sort of, if he's going to try and disrupt anyone in terms of that natural first starting 11.
I hear you. I do hear you on that one, to be fair.
You mentioned about the youngsters team full of Scousers. That's a credit to United, isn't it? That they're the poster boys for this whole whatever troubles we're in, the highs, the lows, for all those kids in the academy. There's always your Brandon Williamses, your Jesse Lingards, your Marcus Rashfords to say, if you work hard enough, because I think they're perhaps all examples of, they weren't the best players in the United academy team, but they were ones who've stuck at it and grafted. And, United are always good at, and that's maybe why the whole Solskjaer thing's with as well at the moment, isn't it? That he's got that club connection. We're looking at Greenwood now, aren't we? The Greenwood had pictures with Ollie when he was young and that, and isn't it? That's, those are the, again, it's fairy tale to say you want a team full of Manchester United academies, but to keep those kids motivated in the academy, they've all got to look at it and see, well, I can be that, or, not like the Chelsea where you've got 50 guys out on loan because they're never going to get any chance of the first team.
Can I ask Tom quickly? Sorry. Can I ask, what do you think Mason Greenwood is the real deal? Because, I've spoken to Sammy about it. We've had our own opinions. But do you think the media, because I feel like sometimes the media, they like to overhype these players. Do you think that's the case? Or what would be your opinion on Mason Greenwood right now?
That's the part of the game. Who wants to read a newspaper article about Mason Greenwood's not all that, or we should buy, everyone wants to hear he's going to win the Euros, he's going to take United back to the glory days. There's got to be a lot for set, and this is whatever, seeing people in the flesh, because you sort of that privileged position of, you can watch them all the time and what they're doing. And the game against Villa is probably a good example of him. Like the first half, the goal he scores, Aston Villa are literally scared. They're like, he'd done Neil Taylor 3 times already, and he's running at him, and they're all backing off because they're just like, if I dive in, he's going to embarrass me, and he's going to be in one-on-one. If we back off, but then the second half, he didn't have a kick, and I think that epitomises youth, and that's certainly not a criticism of him, that he's going to be, streaky sort of thing. And at the moment, he is hot right now, and that's. So I was talking about this to someone the other day. It's sort of, if he's on paper, he's one of our best strikers next summer. Yes, he has to go to the Euros, but I want Mason Greenwood going to the Euros at the World Cup and getting all the be-all and end-all when he's like 27, 28. Because we all, Michael Owen, we remember that. Even Theo Walcott going to... I'm not saying that if you're good enough, you're old enough, aren't you? That's the thing. But because we're judging him off such a short sort of thing that... And this is not me saying he's not all that and he can't be all that. I just massively feel as though and I think United are going to do well to sort of keep him grounded and keep him motivated. But if we're talking about what the makeup, like physically, he's bulked up over this whole restart. But we all know about his feet. Is he left-footed? Is he right-footed? He's quick. He's not phased, is he? So the mentality's clearly there. So he has all the foundations. Yeah. But look at, I'm not saying he's the Cristiano or Messi, but these guys did it for decade plus, haven't they? Churning these stuff in, week out. At the moment, we've seen him do it in a couple of months, sort of thing. So I'm very excited. I think he's got a huge future. I just want everyone just to take it with a pinch of salt and just hopefully let him grow. Yeah. Because, there's going to be a time, isn't it, that Ollie probably says he's going to drop him on form, isn't he, sort of thing? How does he respond to that? How is he going to, react to that? If United bring in, because who was someone saying they were linking
Sancho?
Yeah, Sancho. What do you need Sancho if you've got Greenwood?
Of course we need Sancho. Of course we.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because Sancho has proven that 2 leagues and the 2 seasons in the Bundesliga, and that's what I'm saying is that Greenwood's at the moment doesn't have. And Tammy Abraham's a good example. Tammy's like 3 or 4 years older, isn't he? But he was flying at the start of the season, and I'm not saying he's struggling at the moment, but that just epitomises youngsters, doesn't it? Sort of thing. He's hot. His goal tally, Abraham's goal tally for the season is going to be very good. But if you look at the times he did it, it's going to be massively skewed to that October, January sort of thing. And we're largely judging people now, aren't we? So I think everyone. I don't think this is me coming. I think a lot of the older pros that you hear talking about, they'll say, you'll go through a bad patch or this won't last forever. So I think that's the thing with all these youngsters. Yeah. Alexander Arnold, he wasn't this overnight sensation, was he? He was just week in, week out. He's got to this place now where we're just like, we do see him as this incredible footballer, don't we? Don't think of those early days of when he was in and out of the team and stuff like that. So it does take time.
Yeah. No, it is really interesting. And I mean, like looking at Mason Greenwood at United, and then on comparison, looking at Phil Foden and how they're used in the team, how Guardiola uses Phil in the team. He kind of gradually introduces him into it. But I guess that's because of the squad that they have and the amount of quality that they have. Whereas compared to Solskjaer's playing Mason Greenwood now week in, week out. Is that a thing where he's going to burn him out at such a young age, or?
Do you know why? Do you know why he's playing Mason Greenwood now? It's because Dan James hasn't stepped up. Dan James' good season was at the start of the season when he scored 3 goals and was doing good assists and all of that. That was Dan James. And again, like Tom is saying, obviously Dan James is like 22 or 21. Yeah, and it's going to be, obviously he's going to be inconsistent. And like his Mason Greenwood. But the only thing with Mason Greenwood is that when this boy is hot, he's hot. Like, he's right foot, he's left footed. You can't mark that. I keep saying this. You cannot mark this ice cold killer.
Right.
He's sick.
He's all right.
That's the persistent thing in football is all defenders are terrified of pace, aren't they? There's loads of examples of footballers who've got the pace and they'll struggle with that end product, won't they? Adama Traore, I'm not calling him out, but his finishing is not what it should be. Whereas Greenwood's, he's like, you give me that inch, I'm past you,
exactly,
and I'm gonna hit the target.
Tell them, Tom. Tell them.
I still think it's too early. I think we still have to give it time.
No, it's not too early because it's not, Kwame, because you know why it's not.
Wait, before you get.
Do you know why? Do you know why? No, do you know why? It's because if this was Martinelli, because Martinelli was doing this. Yeah. Even before Mason Greenwood was doing it. And to be fair, we had to give Martinelli his props. It's just a shame that he's injured now. Because like I said last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, I believe that if he wasn't injured, Martinelli will be doing the same thing that Mason Greenwood is doing right now to a certain degree. Yeah. So I think that it's just the case of, one, it's a form thing. 2, they're just fearless. These boys are fearless. And again as well, like Mason Greenwood, even before he was before he broke through into the first team anyway, he was having an amazing season in the youth team, scoring. I think he was scoring almost like 20 plus goals a season. So
I don't disagree with you. The only thing I say is, like, I love Mason Greenwood for what I've seen, but it's still, when I say it's too early, I mean, I need to see him against your top six. I need to see him stand out against the top teams like your Chelseas and your Liverpools, etc., etc. With Martinelli, I'm not saying that he's clear above Mason Greenwood, but there's been a few performances where he's stepped up and he's held himself accountable. So that's what I want to see. That's my own opinion of how I test or how I judge a player. Do you step up in the big games? Even like or he didn't step up, but Saka, his impact coming on in the North London derby yesterday, it was a lot more impact than compared to Pepe for me personally. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. I think it's just a good thing for English talent that we've got so many
crazy
so many options.
Talent, yeah.
So many options.
What are these youth teams? That's why I say at the moment is like, I know we won the World Cup, didn't we? That was Sancho and Foden and that. But I'm thinking, all these kids coming through, I'm like, why are we not winning every single? Why is it not England have won the under-18s, the under-17s, or every year sort of thing? Given how surprising it is, how we always seem to find the next thing. So
no, it's true.
I think I think that the nation they move so much on names and so much on like first team players. They don't actually look at who's gonna give good impact, who's going to come in. Because again, remember, like tournament football, anything can happen. Yeah. It doesn't mean that if you pick the best, first team players in the Premier League, that they're going to come and win. Yeah. And clearly that has shown with the so-called England golden era with David Beckham and Michael Owen and all these people. Yeah. So it's like sometimes, and now that you see Southgate to a degree, even though I think he's a very mediocre manager, but even though he is mixing and matching with this England squad, it's working. He knows who's going to show impact and who's going to bring the creativity, the technical side and all of that. So it's mashing them well together. But yeah.
No, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But I think that Southgate is a lot more better compared to our older managers, like you said. He chooses, I always say, choose the players based on form, who is playing well. Like, so for me, I would be bringing Danny Ings. He would be one of my strikers because he's been on form. But beforehand, it used to be, oh no, Rooney. We'll still pick Rooney. We'll still trust these older strikers. So no, it'll be interesting to see next year, obviously, what the team or what the squad will be. But it is exciting times. And to be honest, we should be winning something. As England, we should be winning something, undoubtedly. I just wanted to kind of like, just not tie it up, but I wanted to ask, Tom, your thoughts. I know you spoke about the podcast, or you spoke about us, which is good, and we really appreciate you listening to us. But where do you think that will go in terms of the future? Because we see a lot of podcasts now being mentioned on, mainstream TV, on Sky Sports. Shout out to the Beautiful Game as well for what they're doing. Do you think that there's a whole lot of growth, or do you think that it's just because of what's happened with the pandemic? Obviously, things are flourishing now.
I think this whole digital era that we're living in media, because, it's not too long ago, 10, 15 years ago, that everyone consumed everything through the papers, wasn't it? And television sort of thing. And I'm not trying to say that this is, there's a certain social economic status that sort of came with all of that, wasn't there? Subscriptions, buying papers, stuff like that. Whereas now everyone has this platform. We talked about my journey of, getting into it. I was fortunate, like I say, YouTube was around. If you think, prior to that, it literally was, unless you're getting a job at the BBC or at the Times newspaper, The Guardian or something like that, what was your chance of penetrating, if we're talking about football, the football industry? Now, everyone's got this platform. I think, as we discussed, maybe it's that ability to stand out or do it well. Because I think, again, when I speak to people about, I want to do this, I want to do that, there's got to be a degree of quality to it, you know what I mean? And that balance between it looking right, it sounding right, but also delivering good content sort of thing, which obviously you guys matching up with the visuals, the audio, all those little things are there. But I guess it's finding your niche, isn't it? I think that's if we talk about the Beautiful Game, obviously they're a big newsy podcast, I would say, in terms of their guest list, and newspapers and websites understandably pick up a lot of their content because of the guests that they get. That's one way of doing it, isn't it, sort of thing? But I think more than anything, this is what sports media at the moment is showing us how much more diverse it could be, because again, you know, prior 10, 15 years ago, it was very predictable. It was men, it was white, it was middle-aged sort of thing. YouTube podcasts has just opened it up to, you know, massive shout out to obviously Arsenal Fan TV. That was a big game changer, wasn't it? In terms of, we've had radio phone-ins and stuff like that, didn't we? But they were the first to be like latching on to that. You know, we're Arsenal supporters. See us, you know, see what we look like, see what we sound like. We've all got our own personalities, sort of thing. Whereas I think before, largely you were channeled to be a certain type of look or sound to get on the radio or to have an opinion on football. Arsenal was great and just showcasing that everyday man and woman element to it. Of we all love football, but we all come from different backgrounds. We've all got different opinions. We all like this player. Someone don't like that player. And we all love a good rant, I guess, really. That was the big thing with Arsenal, wasn't it? We all love a good moan about our team. So I think, you know, the scope is there's huge. The ability to move up is massive, but to stand out now, I think that's where you're saying is that's the challenge. I think a lot of people that you guys maybe or others similar having that issue of we're doing stuff, we're doing it well, but if ultimately asking someone to pay us to do content is the ultimate game, it's how are you sort of setting yourself out from your competitors, really?
Yeah. I know you touched on, you spoke about the Sheffield United striker, McGoldrick. I just wanted to kind of get your opinion in terms of, you know, Wilfred Zaha yesterday, he kind of experienced something before the game where, you know, he was sent an abusive or a racial abusive message. What do you feel? Do you feel that the Premier League, do you feel that football itself are doing enough to tackle racism?
It's massively skewed in the time that we're living in at the moment, aren't we? With the whole strength of Black Lives Matter and players taking knees, having it on shirts. We can't compare it to any other time, can we? Sort of thing. I think the issue with always that is that the Premier League will definitely release statements saying we support Wilfred Zaha, but I guess again, what's the accountability? It's not, they can't control, just because it's a Premier League football fan. The Premier League doesn't have to take responsibility for disciplining or, you know, or is that, so it's more, you know, if we want to use the Arsenal example more recently, isn't it? The banana skins on, you know, if that's a Premier League product, isn't it? I prefer to see the Premier League taking strong stances on that. Not to say that they can't back Wilfred Zaha and at the moment, but it's more those instances that are direct impact in Premier League things that I'd want him to take more of a stronger hand with. I think the interesting thing for me is, I'm not going to say that Black Lives Matter is going to get old, but this time next year, are all of these organisations, if it's your Premier League, if it's the FA, all of your football clubs, are you all going to be equally as passionate or, you know, dedicated to stamping out racism as you are right now? Because it seems everyone's on board at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
But I don't know how long that'll last, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Right. I mean, before we end the show, there's a few questions I like to ask, but I mean, just to tie it up, in your personal opinion, or not your personal opinion, but in terms of your career, what would be your legacy, your lasting legacy? What was it, the last imprint that you'd like to leave?
So on aspiring people who want to do the same, or? Yeah.
What's your ultimate goal for you personally?
Oh, sorry. So you're asking me where I want to be, or what a message I'd say to your younger self? I think. Go on, sorry. Yes. Go on, Sam.
Oh no! So like what Carmen's saying, like, you know, what do you want to leave behind, like in terms of like your reporter legacy and stuff like that.
Well, I think the sky is the limit. So I definitely feel as though for me the ultimate is presenting match of the day, I guess, or, you know, some sort of element of being front and center of a football program. That's the dream. That's something I'm definitely going to continue to aspire into. I definitely know that not everyone can get those jobs. It's similar to not everyone makes it as a pro footballer. Not everyone wins Olympic gold medals. But again, I definitely I don't see that as anything to put me off. I'll continue to sort of strive for that. And I think definitely, if you're saying your lasting legacy, something I've learned over the years is just stop trying to please people who just don't back you or don't rate you. Because similar to, we're chatting about football now, the media and the professional world is the same, isn't it? So many people have got opinions of you, and understandably, sometimes there's certain people you have to listen to because they're they know what they're talking about. But there's definitely been a few examples where I'm sort of trying to heed and please people who are just not. I'm just rating their opinion far too greatly. And, you know, as long as you believe in yourself, again, I'm not trying to say that not everyone can be Gary Lineker, Mark Chapman, you know, whatever on the television, but you can continue to be motivated and continue to try. Just don't let people put you off by saying you can't do this or I don't see you fitting on it. If you want to do it, just keep pushing, just keep knocking on those doors.
I like that. That's a great way to end the show. I would just like to say, Tom, it's actually been an absolute pleasure. It's been so interesting to hear your story, to hear your come up, to know like your whole mentality behind, you know, what drives you and how you've kind of, how you've used the skills that you've learned in different sports and you've used it in your current career now, you know, in terms of being dedicated and, you know, never giving up. I've got so much respect for you, honestly, and I can only wish you the best. Obviously, we'll still be in contact, but you know, just thank you for giving the time to be on our show. To be honest,
no, definitely. Well, thanks for having me. You know, not being funny, it's just chatting about football, isn't it? This is what we find so easy. So it's been enjoyable for myself, and if I can help you guys in the future, please let's keep in touch and just keep the ball moving and let's just stay positive.
That's it. No, definitely. Thank you so much.